In this video, we're going to show you how to install the CV axle on your Ford Focus located behind the passenger side front wheel. Using our 19mm socket, we're going to loosen and remove the lug nuts. Grab that wheel, remove it, and set it aside. Let's go ahead and use a 32mm socket, loosen and remove the axle nut. Now I'm going to use a punch, and I'm going to tap in the center of the axle to make sure that the splines are free from the hub. You can see that that's moving. Go ahead and reach around and grab that axle and make sure that it's free floating. Now if yours is stuck, go ahead and spray it down with some rust penetrant and keep on working that until it's free. Now on the outside here, I'm going to go ahead and use my punch here, and I'm going to go ahead and tap the axle through a bit. Just want to make sure we have some flexibility there. Now we want to go ahead and remove our pinch bolt, holding our ball joint to our knuckle. On this bolt here, it's going to be a 15mm nut over here and a 13mm on the bolt side. Now, if you still have the factory bolt, chances are this is going to be a T50 Torx bit, and the nut will be a 15mm. You may have to undo this caliper, remove this 14mm bolt, and swing the caliper away in order to get your Torx bit and your ratchet in here to hold this here. Now, you want to remove this bolt here. I'm going to go ahead and put that nut on here, just a few threads. And I'm going to go ahead and tap this gently to get that bolt worked out. Pop that out. Now we want to go ahead and separate our ball joint from our knuckle. So we're going to use this tool here and on our pry bar. Good, pop that out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and push my knuckle out of the way, pull this up, but I want to protect this boot. Something as simple as a good shop rag will help protect that rubber boot. So pop that on there like so. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this whole knuckle and we're going to push that out in a way and get that axle out. Just like so. Now up behind the engine here, the CV axle comes up and it's held in place here. There's a bearing or a carrier unit right here. Now this clamp itself is going to come off. There are two 14mm nuts. We're going to use our 14mm socket. We spray this down with some rust penetrant to go ahead and loosen these, or help us loosen them. Now sometimes these carrier caps are positioned in a specific position here, and I'm going to go ahead and mark it so I know which way that this cap goes on. I'm going to mark the lower part here, and I'm going to mark the engine so I know that the yellow portion will go at the bottom. Got to remove that cap. Now this here should slide out. We can use a pry bar to gently work this out. You can actually see that the bearing is starting to move a little bit. We can't pull it out because the axle goes into the transmission. So what we want to do is go ahead and work this and pop that axle out towards that passenger side wheel. Now our axle comes across and goes into our transmission right here, and we may lose a little bit of fluid. So make sure you have a bucket or some rags to catch some of that fluid if it should leak. Now over here, we're going to go ahead and use our hammer, and we're going to go ahead and just gently tap this out. You can see we're losing a little bit of fluid there, so we're going to slowly just let that drain out. We can go ahead and grab this axle and start to slide this out. Now at this point here, we want to go ahead and clean where the carrier bearing goes. And you can simply take some spray solvent, spray it right on there, or use a rag, spray it on the rag, but we're going to spray it and wipe it down. And we want to inspect it at the same time. Now ours has a little bit of a rust ridge on it. And if yours has that rust ridge on there, it's probably good if you want to go ahead and clean that up a little bit. We're simply going to take a small piece of sandpaper, nothing super aggressive, but what we're going to do is just going to gently take that rust ridge down. And we're not looking to remove any metal, but we do want to make it so that that new part fits in there perfect. Now first, do a visual inspection around here. Now before you had pulled out your axle, you may or may not have noticed if it was all dry underneath here or it was all damp. If it's damp, that means that your seal here is bad and you want to go ahead and replace it at this time. At this point, I have a clean glove. I'm just going to go around the inside of the perimeter of the seal and feel for any burrs or any defects. Everything seems fine. There's still a little coating of grease there, which is fine. That does help seal this, and everything feels like it's in good shape. So at this point here, we're ready to go ahead and install our axle. All right, let's go ahead and feed our new axle up into position. Line up the axle here, insert that into the transmission. Line up the splines and push that in. Now I do want to make sure that that is fully seated in the transmission, so I'm going to go ahead and use my rubber mallet and tap that, and you can see that that's fully seated now into the transmission. Let's go ahead and install our cap. Go ahead and do a pre-inspection here, make sure the inside of that cap is good and clean. Same thing, if you have some rust buildup on this here, go ahead and hit it with a little bit of sandpaper, clean that up. And then we have the yellow mark reminding us that it goes in that way there, so that's a foolproof way to know how that goes on. Get the nut started. Go ahead and snug these down. Now you want to go ahead and torque these down to 18 foot-pounds. We do suggest that you do maybe 6 pounds per side to go ahead and make sure that it's fully seated, and then go ahead and get to that 18 foot-pounds. Now before we insert our axle shaft into the wheel hub, I'm going to go ahead and put some anti-seize compound on the splines here. You don't have to add a whole ton, but just enough to coat it lightly. Now we're going to go ahead and push this out and rotate this inward. Now at this point, we're going to go ahead and pull our control arm down. Now that we have the axle set in place, install your little dust shield here. Go ahead and get that pinch bolt started through. And once we have that through, go ahead and install the nut on the other side. Let's go ahead and tighten and torque our ball joint pinch bolt. Let's go ahead and tighten this down. Let's go ahead and torque it down to 46 foot-pounds. Now, if you're still using the factory bolt here, you're going to use your T50 Torx bit on the other side and a 15mm socket here. Go ahead and torque that down to 46 foot-pounds. Let's go ahead and clean up the residual transmission fluid here, using some spray solvent, cleaning that. Install the axle nut. And let's go ahead and run that down. Now I want to go ahead and torque down our axle nut. And you have a couple different ways you can do this. You can have someone hop into the vehicle, apply the brakes so that it locks that rotor in place, and then torque it down. Or you can take a screwdriver or something similar and go ahead and put it in here so it comes up against the caliper bracket. That'll lock it into place. Let's go ahead and torque this down to 199 foot-pounds. Grab the wheel. Good, line up the wheel studs. Let's go ahead and install the lug nuts. Ideally, you want to get all these started by hand first. Then we'll go ahead and snug them down. When tightening these down, you want to go ahead and do it in a crisscross pattern. Now let's go ahead and torque down our lug nuts to 94 foot-pounds. Prefer to do this in a crisscross pattern. And you're all set. So now what you want to do is go ahead and start up the vehicle, and you want to let it run for a little bit. You don't want to drive it yet because we know the fluid is low. But let that transmission fluid get up to operating temperature. It could be 4 to 5 minutes for that to happen. And then we can go ahead and check our fluid levels. So we're going to go ahead and pull this out. And we're going to give this a wipe. So what you're going to do is you want to note that there's 2 dots here. And with an operating warm temperature, you want to go ahead and pull this out, and the fluid should be inside that crosshatch area there. Now at this point here, we already checked it, and we are a little bit low. So I'm going to use a clean funnel. And we're going to use the appropriate transmission fluid to go ahead and add some fluid. Go ahead and pull this out. And then, with it still warm, you're going to go ahead and check that fluid again. And you're going to check this a couple times. You don't want to overfill it, so add a little bit at a time. You're going to pull that out. You want to go ahead and check that fluid. And it looks like our fluid is right at the top of our crosshatch, or at the top dot here. So it's perfect. At this point here, you can close everything up and then take the vehicle for a road test.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.